Hi everyone, and welcome to my channel if you're new here. Today, I want to share the 3 most important lessons I've learned in eating disorder therapy that have finally allowed me to start healing. I do want to give a disclaimer and trigger warning. I am not a medical professional in any way, and in this video, I will be discussing topics like my eating disorder, restrictive eating, binging, depression, and PTSD. So if you're okay hearing these topics today, let's get started. I basically tried to make restrictive eating my norm for about 12 years straight. There were times where I was trying to restrict my calories to 1,200 or less. There were times I was restricting my carb intake to 125 grams or less. And there were times where I was only allowing myself clean or paleo compliant foods. I had convinced myself that my body was just different from everyone else's and that I couldn't handle foods like pasta or chips and sweets because I either A, couldn't process them the same, or B, I was too addicted and therefore I had to remain abstinent from those foods. Even though lots of medical testing and different types of professionals confirmed that my body was completely normal and didn't have any limitations when it came to what I could eat. And even though I had years and years of evidence proving to myself that even if I could adhere to that type of restrictive eating for a few days or even a few weeks, it was unsustainable, and I would always end up binging as a result. I really believed that I just needed to find the willpower to stick to it. And I tried that over and over and over again for years and years. And on top of all that, by limiting my calories into certain types of food, it made socializing or being in a relationship so difficult. The food anxiety that I used to feel from making social plans used to be something that stressed me out from the moment I committed to these plans. I'd be thinking about what are we gonna eat, how I was gonna structure the day before hanging out, so that I could go be with friends and enjoy a meal without overeating. Or often I was just trying to figure out how to get out of those plans because of the food stress involved. And then when I was actually with friends, the food noise was crazy. I could barely focus on what other people were saying because my mind was in overdrive trying to stay alert and control my eating behaviors while also trying to appear normal to the people around me. It made spending time with the people I loved so stressful, and I always ended up binging afterwards anyways. It wasn't until I fully surrendered and let my behavioral nutritionist guide me that my life started to dramatically change. It wasn't until I stopped labeling certain foods good and certain foods bad that the food noise volume started to get turned way down. She would preach flexibility, eating different types of foods, focusing on satisfaction, and eating the foods I actually wanted. And as you can imagine, once I started to eat the food I actually wanted, instead of forcing myself to eat the foods I thought my body should have, things started to feel a lot more natural. I've learned that flexibility is the only way for me to live. And the thing that stays front of mind for me every day now is eat the thing you want. And I had always thought that if I allowed myself to eat the foods that I crave, then I would constantly binge and it would never feel like enough. But what actually happened was that I became desensitized. These foods like pasta, fries, candy, sweets, they became normal to eat. They no longer felt like a drug, and they no longer have a hold over me anymore because I can have them whenever I want, every day even. And I do. I've had more pasta this year than ever before, and it has been incredible. Every meal is now an opportunity to have something delicious, satisfying, and something I actually want. My binge pattern had always looked like this. High stress or high emotion or high restriction leads to me isolating ordering large amounts of food from delivery apps without even thinking, and then turning on a show or a video. Some type of distraction that I could watch while binging. It's the merriment of the highly palatable foods in large quantities with a visual distraction that was lethal and ruining my life. I would go completely numb until I reached way beyond the point of feeling full. It wasn't until my behavioral nutritionist asked me to stop watching TV or videos that the pattern finally started to break, and I started to gain awareness in a truly impactful way. Removing screens wasn't about discipline. It was about removing the disassociation. When I finally started to just sit with my meals, I was finally able to slow down my eating. I was able to actually look at the food and connect with my body in a way that I never had before. And because I now never turn on screens while eating, I am so much more aware when my brain starts trying to convince me to do that in order to binge. It's a siren that I just didn't hear before. It's taken me a long time to understand why I binge. And to be honest, I don't think there's one particular reason. I know restriction led me to binge. I know any type of big emotion led me to binge, including happiness, high stress, anxiety, and likely childhood PTSD. Tying it to one of these specific things really has no value. But what is important is that binging became the only reliable coping mechanism that I had. It's been an effective tool for me to deal with life when anything felt like too much and I needed to relax or just stop feeling for a little while. And it was a powerful tool. So powerful that I instinctually chose that, even though it led to weight gain, feeling lethargic, unhappiness, depression, embarrassment, financial chaos. Even though I wanted to stop so bad every day for years, I kept falling back on that coping mechanism. And from understanding what I was trying to cope with, restriction, big emotions, lack of purpose and passion, lack of family and connection, I was able to start targeting these things one by one so that I either didn't need to cope with it anymore or so that I could start practicing and applying new coping mechanisms. When it came to restriction, as we discussed, I stopped restricting what I eat, and just like that, I don't need to cope with that anymore. Lack of purpose, I started this YouTube channel as an avenue for all my creative energy and to start learning new skills and stimulating myself intellectually again. I stopped being afraid of what others would think and went after what I knew I wanted. When it comes to big emotions, I still struggle, but practicing better communication in my relationships, in partnership with walking, exercising, phoning friends, and most importantly, not isolating. These have been the new coping mechanisms that I've introduced into my life to deal with all these big emotions. And when it comes to family and connection, I never let food get in the way of seeing friends anymore. And I'm finally in a relationship where I feel like I'm part of a family, and my heart had been looking for that for so long. One by one, I've tackled these obstacles until binging has become no longer necessary. So those were the 3 most important lessons that I learned in eating disorder therapy. If you're someone who's struggling, I hope this video has been helpful, and if you'd like to follow along on more of my healing journey, I'd love to have you here. Thank you so much for watching.